Welcome to the LBIGuy podcast, hosted by Kevin Stretch of Stretch Cleaning and Restoration in Long Beach Island, New Jersey. This week we'll talk to Helen Stretch and her sister Lois Perry about their 70 plus years on LBI.
When you guys came down, when you were little, did you come down for the week? Did you come down for the summer with Nana? Like, what did you do?
We came down probably in the beginning, just like on weekends or
I would
something
think
like
so.
that.
In the very
But when we
beginning,
got a little bit older, we came down and
we would come
Mom
down
and stay here for the summer.
the day school let out. We would drive down, even in our uniforms, and the day school let out. And on the day school began, we would drive up at 7 o'clock in the morning in our uniforms, and she'd put us on the trolley to go to school, and we did it from the day school was out to the day school.
So again, who were your friends? I know there was Mrs. Quigley and everyone.
Mrs. Quigley, Jean Davis.
Oh, Jeannie Davis,
The Anderson
Two
girls.
doors down.
Jeannie Davis.
No, she lived right next door.
Okay.
And
Yes.
then the Anderson girls, they lived in the Bashel house, the Anderson girls. And a good friend of mine was Martha DeWitt, who was absolutely nuts. I loved her. She had grandparents that had a house down here, and she would come down here, and she was, I sailed with her. I was her crew. But she would give me her boat every August because her family went on a cruise down the Chesapeake every August on grandfather's big boat. And at that point in time, you had to have the boat had to be sailed in a certain amount of races to qualify. So my father didn't give me a boat. He gave my brother a boat, but he didn't give me a boat. And maybe I never asked, I don't know. But at any rate, I sailed all the time because people would either pick me up for a crew, a very light crew, or
What kind of boats? Was it
sailed in lightnings, I sailed in moths, I sailed in blue jays, I sailed in sunfish, and sailfish. Actually, sailfish was a flat surface, like
I never understood that
a
boat.
surfboard.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. We sailed in all of those boats, and but that's my fondest memory of down here is the sailing program and how the parents all supported it. It was so cool.
So what's your first memories like the yacht club?
First memory of the yacht club was sitting on the dock selling lemonade, and my sister kept leaving me there alone, and she went off to play, and I had to sell the lemonade, which was fine
They were
because
having a
people were
regatta.
buying it.
Oh, you were
And
having
the
fun.
guys had nothing to drink, and the guys out on the boats were coming in to get lemonade because they would take pictures of it there, and we had to go buy lemons at the country store. So
Country store at the bridge?
That's her
No,
story.
right
No,
here.
right here.
Country
Yeah.
store.
You mean the
General
General
store?
store.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
The barrel surf.
also, Mrs. Shin, you know where the theater used to be, right
Yeah.
across from your place. Well, Mrs. Shin had a little store there, and it was a little arcade store, and you could play. Mrs. Shin had her store there. She would sell hamburgers and hot dogs. She would sell penny candy, and she had booths on the side. And Dusty remembers this too. I know you're not remembering it
I
right now.
remember.
But
The
we
paper
hung
shop.
out at Mrs. Shin's store all
Was it on
the
the
time.
bayside or the ocean
No,
side?
it was on
It
right
was
in
right-
part
the
of
movie was
part of the
here.
movies,
Next to it was Mrs. Shin, and on the end was
part of
the
the movie theater.
Cradle Shop, which Helen worked at. At any rate,
I didn't even know you worked at.
and we hung out there all the time,
Wow.
and it was a lot of fun. And but the arcade, then another arcade was built across the way in your building, but that was not there when I was a teenager.
So it's a shame Kyle just left right now. Was there any pieces that the railroad left? Any spots or
No.
anything? Do you
No,
remember?
none
I
of
know it
that.
wasn't here, but I mean.
The railroad was gone, and
The only thing left was the post office at the corner.
And that was,
And this is,
wasn't that the building for the railroad though, and then they turned it into a post
Yes.
office? Is that how, well, it probably was post office even when they had
Right.
tracks there.
because the people would come, the train would come in the section there,
Right,
and then they would buy the ticket.
right. Have you
Mrs.
ever
Pettibone.
read The Story of a Yacht Club by Richard Powell?
No, I did not.
I have to show you that, and I should have it for you. It shows that when, I think it was Baldwin, who was a person who did a lot of development down here, would give people, when the train was in,
Baldwin Hotel.
yeah, but I think the man was named Baldwin, maybe, I don't know, a different name maybe. But at any rate, he was a person who was trying to encourage people to come down here when the train was operating. They used to give people $50 if they would come down for the day, listen to the spiel, and you could, no, they didn't give it to me, you could purchase a piece of property for $50. I have to show you that book. It is the history of Long Beach Island. And so that's how some people got started down here.
Yeah, I have other stories like that,
Yeah.
which I love at all the
My
times.
earliest memory is going to the post office because we didn't have a phone when we first
No,
came
we did
down.
not.
So she would send somebody over, and which was the old house at the corner that used to be part of the train station. And then she would send a kid over to get you because the phone was over in her place, and then you'd go over and find out who was calling you.
And give her
We
like a
didn't have
quarter?
cell
Did
phones.
you give her like a penny, like a dime or something? She
No,
just did it as a courtesy?
yeah, and Mrs.
Just
Pettibone
courtesy.
was a very mean lady. I think she was stern more
I
than
don't think
mean.
she was
stern.
She wasn't mean. She was a business lady there. She was had a job there at the post office, which is,
Yeah,
a state job.
Now you
or
mean,
something like
of
that.
course, I know the one you're saying with the post office, but next door was the railroad house that they moved
The
over.
railroad
So you
house.
mean that they were both kind of together, where the
Well,
one might have been the office and the other one was,
but I don't.
I don't
At
remember the
the
other
time,
one.
that,
no,
we
the
weren't
clothing store.
here. We weren't here when you
Wildflower,
bought.
they tore down.
That's right.
Because
weren't-
that was where you got the ticket. You got the tickets there though, wouldn't you?
I would
We
think
weren't
so.
here when the train came,
I
so
know.
of course the train station.
Yeah,
was
but
then
he's
a
talking
store.
about the Wildflower
Yeah.
building. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh no, I remember that. That was a lovely little kids store.
Yeah,
But it
but
was the train
before that,
station.
it was the train station
Yeah,
there, right?
yeah.
Right. Let's
So,
just see a picture of that one.
And I know myself, 25% of the island, it seemed, wasn't developed. It was just fields.
Oh, no, it
I
was
mean, back when
empty.
you were a kid,
It was empty. It was empty. But what was really interesting, I was thinking about it, we walked everywhere,
and we did too.
but we didn't have bicycles down here. I don't remember having a bicycle. I had it at home, but I think it was
I don't
because
think
they
so.
didn't have bicycle shops down here and nobody wanted to put all the bicycles in the car. You walked everywhere.
And again, you're right. Now that if you had like 4 kids, we'd bring out 4 bikes. Where would
Right,
put them?
right. And
You didn't go to Walmart and buy a bike rack. They didn't sell them.
right,
They didn't exist.
that wasn't even over there then.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that we didn't have a garage then, so you had no place to put the bike.
It was all going to rust out
It
anyway.
was going to rust out anyway.
We had a garage here.
No, you didn't.
No, we didn't.
He didn't build that until Nana moved down here.
He
When they
didn't.
retired down
We
here
didn't have a
in
garage.
'76.
No, he moved. He
I remember
got
being built. I remember
Yeah.
it being built.
No,
that,
I
which we
know.
should have put an apartment up there. At the
Yes.
top. We should have done that. He should have done that. That would have been smart, to have that extra space. But it was no, that was built later. That was not here initially.
Uh-huh. So I said here, what are your earliest memories of like, I guess you said BBYC, but I guess the Bay. Did you hang out at the Bay? Well, you said you were sailing all the
I
time.
was always.
But actually,
at
how was
that.
it? But I remember the junior clubhouse. I remember the old main clubhouse at
Mhm.
Burnett Beach Yacht Club. But what do you remember about the whole bay there?
Well,
Like it was undeveloped.
It was undeveloped,
there was
but they
always
had
the beach though.
They always had the A dock. They always had A dock, and they had rowboats, and all the boats that people owned were on were out in the bay. They were, what do you have, those anchor
buoys,
things,
the
the
buoys.
buoys, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they were out there, and people had to take a rowboat to get to their boat. So there were about 6 rowboats at the end of the dock that people used. They were yacht club boats,
Uh-huh.
and that's how they got to their boat, and then they would bring it back after they were done.
Okay, that is pretty cool. And I remember you saying, she said that she used to go water skiing on a ramp?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah,
had
the
a
ramp
ramp.
was out in the bay.
Oh, yeah, a
Right.
big ramp.
Who built it? Like, it wasn't
It
Ted
was,
Ford, was
if you
it?
go, if you would
Uncle
look
Ted?
over to the where that park goes out like this,
Uh-huh.
it was
Right there.
almost, it was
Where the
closer,
police
it was
house
closer
is.
to the bay, but it was sort of like where
Where the-
Arius's house is or something.
No, it wasn't there. It
No,
was
it
where
was down,
Cleish's
but I mean, it
house
was
is.
down, out that far. It was out that far, on that side of the, when that deep is what I'm saying.
I know, but it was across from where Cleish's house was.
Yeah,
Because that dock that Cleish's house wasn't there.
was not there.
Uh-huh.
And,
I
you know,
didn't
I kind of
remember.
remember before
it
that
had
was
to
there.
be out
I
of
remember
the
there's no
channel.
houses.
It
on
was
it.
not in the channel,
No, I know.
but it was closer to
But
the
it-
uphill than that. Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I remember there was no houses on that point. I think it was only a dock.
What there was
A tiny dock, a tiny dock.
They had that's where the races were. The race committee would come and there was just a platform type thing. They had chairs there. The race committee would sit on that platform out like in that marshy area. It wasn't even a marshy area, but it was an undeveloped area. The only thing was there was the platform for the race committee.
Uh-huh.
And that was the only thing that was here. Searle's house was always there.
Uh-huh.
And they were the closest ones. There was nothing.
I
Those three
guess at
houses
one
weren't
point they
there.
thought nothing could be built right there.
I bet that's true.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
This is the one that I wish Kyle and Brian were here for. So I remember Uncle Jim in like the late 70s or early 80s, whatever it was. Guys, I get a great idea.
I know they're claiming.
No,
Family.
we're going camping.
I don't
So
remember
the
that.
house was 3 bedrooms and later converted to 2 when our grandfather moved down
Moved
here
down
into the
here.
cottage. But there was no room. The 3 bedrooms, 1 bedroom for you and Dad, 1 bedroom for you, Pop and Nana, and the other one.
And a 10 out.
Kelly on the couch, that thing that bent and turned
Yeah.
into a bed, however the hell. Not a modern pull-out bed, whatever the hell. What do you call those things? Like almost
I know
not even a
what you mean.
trundle. What the hell was
No,
that?
it was just a
A couch. Oh my gosh! Remember that thing?
pull-out bed. I know what you're saying. Pull-out
It was
couch.
on
I know-
strings
No,
somehow.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And then Jen was so small, she was in a crib or something.
Yeah. Right.
And then
She
the
could have
boys.
been in a drawer.
So, what was the conversation when he threw us outside for the summer in the tent?
You know what? You guys always sit there and say that he threw you outside in the tent.
Well, no. He said,
If
"Great
you
idea.
talk-
We're going camping."
If you talk to Danielle DeBauer, she says there was a lot of fun in that tent
Yeah.
outside. But I can understand that being.
We
Yeah,
weren't
a
allowed in
little
the house
harsh.
unless we were doing number 2. And Uncle Jim, your husband.
How could you not have been in the house if
Excuse me a minute.
Once the sun went down, we weren't allowed back in. Once the sun went down, I remember him coming to the door. Oh, right. Go behind the garage, right? And then we're like, but you gotta go number 2. He'd be, oh, fine, go upstairs, get it over with. You know, get back out here. Oh, I remember. We all remember. We all remember. Now, I don't know if it was, I remember, I know it was when all of us were down. Like if you weren't down, or, you know, and I'm sure.
Oh, we were all down a lot.
But we were all
together.
down all the time.
Oh my God.
Now, don't get me wrong. We thought it was the
But-
coolest thing, and all the kids in the neighborhood were jealous because we were camping. We had no curfew. We were out. And
Absolutely. No, you couldn't have a curfew because nobody knew if you were coming or going.
yeah, so we're all in the tent, and then the neighbor kids, the boys wanted to stay there, Kenny and Mark. But like, how did this idea come about?
Oh, God only knows. I have
It was a
no
cool
idea
tent. It
how
was
we
a big
did
tent.
that. It was a big tent. I know we had a tent that we did a lot of camping. We went to Maine a lot and did a lot of camping up there.
Was it that tent?
It had to be that tent. It was a big tent. It had to be that tent.
So where did a tent appear? Did he had to turn to you and say, "I got a great idea. We're going to throw these kids outside"?
Oh, I don't remember him doing that. If he said that, I would have said, "Oh, we can't do that. So we're doing it more than likely."
Okay, so when Pop passed away, right? And I remember us having the conversations. We just assumed we were coming down the shore, and then you were going to rent out the house or whatever, you know. And you ended up letting us stay down the shore for the summer. And everyone in the neighborhood I know thought, you used to tell me, thinks we're nuts. right? Like, what was that conversation about? I wish Kyle was here for this one right now. So I was.
You guys did well. You
I
all
was. No,
were.
I was 13.
So I don't.
There wasn't
John,
an issue.
Kyle was 14.
We've never had
John
a
was 16.
problem. We've never had any of the neighbors ever complain
Never
about
complained.
anything.
Never complained.
No, but when you let us do it from the beginning.
But I mean, but you.
I remember you said that. I think Mr. Corral thought you were nuts.
I don't remember that, but I think it worked out well.
It did work out well, and you
And
all
you
had
guys
jobs,
are
and you
all
were all
well
busy.
Well, I remember you saying we all had to work.
Yeah.
And you were all
Well, I
well
agree.
behaved.
That's one of
Pay
the
the bill
things
and pay
coming to the
utilities.
shore. You have to have a
You were
job.
all well behaved. I think that Joe Carlo was probably thrilled that Joey had a place to go.
Well,
And-
no, Joe
and
wasn't
probably,
I know.
We
probably
never
you
did all
closed
that.
all the windows and stayed inside the house and not on the subfloor,
Exactly.
so nobody knew what you were doing anyway.
Exactly.
No, we were.
You had a lot of
We
people
were working.
working.
We were working all the time.
You were
And if we
working.
weren't working, we were surfing.
Yeah.
You know, we were. I always told people down here, like, the bedrooms are unimportant. I mean, like the houses, make them small. Like people can sleep here because if you're hanging out in your house, there's a problem. You know what I
Well,
mean?
the
Back
thing
then.
is, there's so many
When
things
we were in our
to
20s,
do.
so like, if you're
Yeah.
hanging out and you're in the house, you know, you're doing something
Yeah.
wrong.
Well, you know, it's
You don't come down to
interesting.
shore to hang out in your house.
Well, what is interesting is a lot of people do that now, and that's why, just like you have the downstairs set up for everybody
Right.
to gather, a lot of people do that now, but they didn't do that before.
No.
That gathering place on the ground level, so that you could be indoors and outdoors. It's very common down here now, but it wasn't common then.
Now, I know we were hanging out on the beach, hanging out on the beach. And
Oh, yeah.
at the 4 or 5 o'clock
Excuse me,
drinking.
all I remember is Dad saying, "Those kids never do anything but slam that door."
Right.
Oh, I remember. I remember.
Right. Slamming the door.
Slam the door.
Slam the
Don't they know
door.
how to close the door?
So you don't think you didn't have any pushback from the neighbors? I remember you saying someone thought we were nuts, and I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure
They
did.
probably did, but
I mean, I know you were only around the corner.
But they, I don't think I think they saw that it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I think they saw that you guys
After
were.
3 weeks of seeing it works, then it's no big deal. And then John is 17, so now all of a sudden John had his birthday during the summer. Not that John, sorry, buddy, it's not like we were necessarily listening to you. We were,
Meaning he was in charge? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he was the oldest, but we were, just as responsible, even though we were younger.
Uh-huh.
You know.
No, you guys were very responsible.
Uh-huh. So, what's we got here?
And my cousin and I stayed down here when
Uncle
I
Robert?
was
Uncle Robert.
17, I think.
Because you worked down
Yeah.
here.
We stayed down here, the two of us, all summer long. I guess, I don't remember about this summertime. Yeah, I worked right through the summer. But my parents, my mother and father weren't here. And we stayed down here, and both of us worked at Wheatus. And there was no issue with, and I was 17 then. And I don't know, Robert's a little bit older than me, but same in age, similar in age. Nobody said anything about that either. It was a whole different world. It was so safe.
It was.
It actually reminds me also like of Philly, because or at least the old neighborhood, because
I mean, there
we
wasn't
grew
as
up in-
much for there wasn't the problems that this country has now.
And you might have drank or had beer or something
Or
like that.
smoked.
But that was
we never did that. We never did.
But I
But
mean,
that was it,
the
and-
worst that somebody would say is, "I saw them with a beer," or "I saw them smoking." More likely
No, we
smoking
weren't.
than anything
Well,
else.
No, we definitely weren't smoking.
No,
No,
but
I
I'm
know.
saying if anybody was complaining about their kids or upset about
That's
their
what it
kids,
would
it was
be.
a cigarette or something like that.
Uncle Robert did with the Wheatus.
Oh, he was a waiter.
Uh-huh. And did you work there too?
I was
or-
a waitress, and
Okay.
and they got very excited when I finally had my 21st birthday, because then I was allowed to give drinks. Meanwhile, I was giving drinks from the time I was 17.
Uh-huh.
So, and nobody
Now
said
you're legally
anything.
allowed to do it.
And they had a birthday party for me, and the owner said, "Finally, she's legal."
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Now, do you remember any? I mean, I remember one, but I see some of the old pictures where there's some commercial places on the Ocean Road. There was like,
I don't remember that.
no?
No.
Well, you do know that in Ship Bottom, the house is still there. It's a house. It was one of the old bathhouses. You used to go up and get hot dogs and stuff like that. So the same street as Joe Pops. There used to be a dock that went out.
Yeah, there may well
Right.
be, but I don't remember.
But
That's
I also
another
think
trip.
the beach, there used to be like the Beach Haven Crest Fishery or something. There was like a fish market I saw one time.
There was a fish market, but it was
And there's some
on,
like houses with like, were hotels, but they probably looked more like houses, but they had like boarding houses.
Yeah, a lot of boarding houses, but there
Yeah.
were, yeah.
or maybe there was a place where you could change your clothes if you were going to the beach. I don't remember that though.
Uh-huh.
We
I do
were a
remember.
very we weren't like Atlantic City. That was a whole different thing. We were very family oriented, and
I remember we just never really left Brent Beach.
I know.
It was like a big deal to ride the bike down to Beach Haven.
Let me
There
tell
was
you
no
what.
e-bikes. There's no e-bikes.
No,
And
exactly.
we skateboarded.
Exactly. And so you kind of stayed kind of close in your area. What I loved about the yacht club experience was I got to know a lot of kids all over the island because we would have races in different clubs.
Uh-huh.
And if you wanted to do anything at any age, you went in a boat, whether a motorboat
We did
or
too. We did
yeah,
too.
we
We went
went
to Beach Haven by
everywhere.
boat.
yeah, always.
Uh-huh.
And so you couldn't drive,
Uh-huh.
but you could go anywhere.
Uh-huh.
And I was driving cars when I was probably 13.
Uh-huh.
And on the ocean road, my mother would always let us drive on the ocean road. You were probably.
We always
You're the
could
same.
do that.
You could always do that.
And that's how we sort of learned to drive.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Down here, because there hardly anybody
There's no
around.
one. There's no one.